Pro Baseball Today right here on the SportsGrid Network. Another lovely Sunday here in the month of June. Teams playing 65-plus games. Countdown to 100. We're headed towards the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, and also so much more to talk about. The topics continue to flow. That's our job today. My name, Donnie Rightside. His name, Craig Mish. We got you for 2 hours, and we got you covered on everything you need to know in Major League Baseball. Craig, how we feeling today?
Great Sunday to be with you again here, Donnie, as we get closer to the halfway point in the Major League Baseball season. Interesting that some teams seem to be shifting a little bit. There's been some sweeps on one side with teams trying to get back into the race, other teams falling down a little bit, and you just have to kind of ask yourself the question, is it just, the month of June? Is it just slumping, or is it just some teams getting hot temporarily, or if it is legit? But you know what happens as we kind of close in on the end of the month, we start looking at the standings now. I think it's kind of fair to start looking at where teams are in the standings and the wild card. And of course, we'll have the All-Star break coming up next month.
Absolutely. And by the way, that All-Star break in the city of brotherly love, we'll get to that and much more. But also, Craig, as you pointed out, teams that we expected to do pretty well so far this season. Atlanta Braves, fantastic. The Dodgers humming along. And also in the Central Division in the National League. Yeah, it's those Milwaukee Brewers. All that much more. But also, Craig, we got to get to the big news of the week here at this point. We were wondering, is something wrong with Aaron Judge? What could it be? And if you watched anything from any of the post-game press conferences here, Aaron Boone, he's bewildered at the answers that he's having to give to the people, asking the questions, only to find out, oh boy, Aaron Judge down possibly 4 to 6 weeks with a stress fracture on his first rib on his right side. Devastating news to Mr. MVP, Craig.
Yeah, and it's devastating, but I think it sounds like it could have been worse, at least if you're a Yankees fan. It does appear that, there were some, at least things thrown out with the possibility of thoracic outlet surgery, which would mean, Donnie, he would absolutely miss the year if that is the case. And by the way, I'm still not so sure that at the end of those 4 to 6 weeks, what will happen here, because maybe there is more to it. It's impossible to speculate with injuries and stuff like this. And if I'm not mistaken, the injury diagnosis is to get more imaging after that time is over. And so that's not even a return to play. It's just that. I'm sure the Yankees, if you look at their squad, you look at their team, they're a team that obviously is built to win and get to the postseason. Their starting pitching is strong enough. That's a massive hole not having him there. Can they temporarily replace him with somebody via trade? I think the Yankees probably will explore that. But I think if you told Yankees fans, Donnie, and you told the Yankees we'll get Judge back in August or September for a postseason run, I think they would take it right now. I think that you should want to take it right now because it's sort of scary when you see an injury like this.
Yeah, thinking about that same injury to what we saw in Zach Wheeler in Philadelphia last year, which wiped out the rest of his 2025. And to be quite frank, a lot of people were thinking that might be the end of his career. Now, he worked through it, pitched extremely well so far, and we'll see if that works out. But I think you're right about this one thing, Craig, where the information was floated. We don't really know what's wrong. And if it was the worst case scenario, is that the end of the season or maybe the end of the career for Aaron Judge? So I think most Yankees fans, you are correct, thinking like, wait a second, we dodged a bullet here. Only a stress fracture in the rib cage, 4 to 6 weeks. But also, Craig, like we feel so many in pitchers like, hey, shoulders down. Well, sit out for a month. Like, you got to ramp back up. Same thing with Aaron Judge. This is a guy that's big into the weight room here, taking your cuts every single day. And what are they telling him, Craig? Hey, we'll get back to you about a month. Don't do anything at this point. So there will be a ramp-up period as well.
Yeah, that's why I just don't see this as a 4 to 6 week injury. And again, it's hard to speculate on some of this stuff, as we'll talk about with another injury to Skubal, who, is supposed to be out a long period of time. Now is coming back maybe a little bit sooner. We really don't know. But that's just the thing, Donnie, with injury. So I think what you do is you check back after the All-Star game, honestly, and you see where Judge is at. And then if you find out that with any of the medical imaging that he's not ready to return, then I think the alarm at that point goes off, because anything that doesn't heal right now that has to be done after these 4 to 6 weeks are over, I think that could be season ending at that point. So I guess we'll just have to see.
And we will have to see. And also, if you tell Yankees fans, like, okay, he is going to be back and he might not win the MVP, sure, they're going to take that, because the ultimate here is to win a World Series, have your players healthy and hitting well into the month of September. But also, Craig, you take a look at those odd shifts here. Yes, Aaron Judge, multi-time MVP, expected to be the MVP again this year, and he was the favorite before the rib injury. Now you see a John Ewing tweet here, -125, Craig, before the injury. 100 to 1 now if he does miss the month here, and that turns into the favorite. Always creeping up top there is Bobby Witt Jr. to +145, but I do find it so interesting right behind here in live odds. Yordan Alvarez also up there as one of the leaders to win the AL MVP, Craig. And the question is is he even going to be in the American League by the time we get to that trading deadline? But understand this, they're only the Astros 4.5 games back in the West. I don't know if they give up on the season just yet, Craig.
Yeah, they've made a little run to kind of keep themselves in it, and that's despite all of the injuries that they have had with Correa and Altuve, and now we'll talk about Hader and some others. You know, I get the sense if the Astros are going to do some sort of reset, Donnie, or some sort of rebuild, maybe it would make more sense for them to do this after the season, you know, even if they're not in it, because then what you're doing with a player like this, I don't know if you would call Alvarez a generational player. I know he had another grand slam over the weekend too, but what you do is you're limiting yourself right now, Donnie, to about 8-10 teams that would take him on. In the offseason, you're opening it up to like 25. And maybe some team that we don't even know about that wants to make a big push for next year. So if they were to do something like that, I would anticipate he's the kind of player that gets moved in an offseason. But certainly Witt is one of those guys for the MVP. Alvarez has to be too. It's a wide open field right now for that award.
It's a great point that you bring up, too. You can equate it almost to the NBA as well. Giannis Antetokounmpo, hey, do we trade him by the deadline for Milwaukee? They go, okay, let's hold back here. We'll wait till the summer. We'll bring more teams into the 10, maybe get a better return, and they could be looking at that. And also, buying themselves some time, Craig. You don't want to commit right now. Okay, let's open up and get the phone lines going, and all of a sudden, a month later, the Houston Astros are a game up in first place over the Seattle Mariners. A lot to play out here, but it's interesting to me where a guy up for the MVP might not be on that same baseball team, and away we go. And Craig, he sort of crossed over a little bit there. Josh Hader, how about this? First appearance since August the 8th of last season. Now, typically, as we know, dominant closers, a lot of teams want them there. But do you really need a dominant closer, Craig, if your expectations might be we're not even going to make the playoffs? But Hader back, good thing for the Astros, maybe even better for a prospect count.
Yeah, and you know, this is more of an easy deal here if Houston decides to part ways with Hader. The only difficulty in it was that, like, as an example, with his end days, Donnie, in Milwaukee, because he was approaching free agency and a contract, I mean, there was like this sort of non-handshake agreement that Hader would not pitch multiple innings. And so, you know, he didn't want to get hurt, and he knew, and the team wasn't taking care of him. And I think inevitably that's why he parted ways from Milwaukee. I don't think the same thing would happen here in Houston. Maybe he would want to throw multiple innings just to be able to get moved, but that has to be part of the conversation. Is that you mentioned the NBA? He's a little bit like an NBA player. He was sort of controlling his own market back when he was with the Brewers. And I think that teams that are going to be going to him have to be saying, hey, look, if we get you and we're in October, we can't hear that you're not willing to, you know, throw an inning and 2/3. So I do think that stuff will get worked out. And Hader's a lot older now than when he was with Milwaukee. But if he's healthy, he's a great piece.
He is a great piece. And also just, and I don't know where the San Diego Padres end up. They sold their franchise here, new ownership group sitting at 33-30 heading into Sunday. Not playing great baseball, 2-8 in their last 10. But there was always talks a couple weeks ago, Craig, like, ooh, can we get Mason Miller and Hader on the back end? Which is like, okay, 6th inning, it's a tie game. This is our game because nobody's going to score. But then again, you still got to be in the hunt. You got to take on that salary, and he has to be healthy, something to watch out for, which means another pitcher, Craig, who could be making his comeback. And Guy, got to say, this is one of the first times I've looked at it and said, oh, that injury, devastating here, but the surgery went fantastic. We think he's going to be back sooner than later. Craig and I laughed at that comment. Tarek Skubal looks like he is going to be back, Craig, sooner than later now.
Yeah, and look, the timeline isn't as exaggerated as was original. Well, first of all, it was supposed to be later on, and then he was supposed to be back already, Donnie, right? Like he was supposed to be pitching already, like according to what we heard. So if it turns out this is going to be somewhere in the middle, but that's still a win as far as Skubal's injury is concerned. So making a rehab start, I would have to think he's got to make another one. So that would put him back in the middle of June to the Tigers rotation as opposed to July. I thought, again, like we talked about, All-Star break, this puts him back sooner for sure. We think. So a win for Skubal, without a doubt. A win for the surgery, too.
By the way, Sunday, June 7th, which is today, is going to be starting for the West Michigan Whitecaps here to get back, Craig. But also, as we talked about Josh Hader, are we rushing him back to get back into the playoff race? Because you look at Detroit, 10.5 games back of the Cleveland Guardians, but more importantly, 26-39 on the season. Can they even get a wild card? And does it make sense to push the envelope on Tarek Skubal? More hot topics on the way. It's Pro Baseball Today right here on the SportsGrid Network, and we will be right back. Terrible start last year, injured all the way through, didn't have a chance to win that Major League Baseball season. This year, first team to 20 wins, first team to 30 wins, first team to 40 wins. It's all in the Atlanta Braves. Good baseball club lurking around here.
They still have some guys, some starting pitchers on the shelf there that could help them down the road, but the Braves are sitting pretty right now.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Christopher Sanchez is the right call right now. What am I missing? Why is Shohei Ohtani not right there with him? Well, is it the innings, Donnie? What is it? What am I missing here? Because if he qualifies for the pitching title and he throws a lot of innings and he leads the major leagues in earned run average and even whip, like, well, what am I missing?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all four.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
Commercials are starting to come out about the All-Star game to be played in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Ballpark. And you say, well, Donnie, what does that actually mean? And why would you lead a segment off with that? Well, Craig, we're going to talk about Nick Castellanos, who's been with the Philadelphia Phillies for a couple of years. A lot of roller coasters up and down, beers in the clubhouse, getting suspended, not getting off on the right foot with Rob Thompson, and eventually finds himself in San Diego. But Craig, this wasn't a trade to San Diego. The Phillies were like, look, things aren't working out. We can't find a destination. Good luck. We'll pay you a salary. And the Padres may be able to rehab and use his bat off the bench and just see what could be. Well, it just turns out, Craig, that over the past 2 weeks, the Phillies played the Padres twice, and the Phillies actually swept the Padres in San Diego and at home. So now we're saying, okay, Castellanos coming back to Philadelphia. Will he get booed? Will he get cheered? Let's just see if he plays and how much he does or how well he does. Craig, never in a million years did I think that they would do him like this. You're going to go back to Philadelphia, and while you're there, yeah, we're going to DFA you. Craig, this was a story that even though he wasn't playing well, that was surprising to me.
Yeah, I think the timing of it definitely was strange. I don't think that one thing honestly had anything to do with the other, though. That's the sense that I get. The sense that I get is that, the back nine of Castellanos' career may have come down to hole 18 here, Donnie. Like, I think that if he wants to continue to play, I hate to say it, and he's making so much money this year, clearly is, Donnie, I think he's going to probably have to take a minor league deal with someone and prove that he deserves to be in the big leagues because his numbers in San Diego were just not good. And I remember when he went to the Padres, they were championing this move. Like all the fans were like, oh, what a great move. And he got off to a pretty good start too. But look, the hand-eye coordination, things just come to an end for every player. I'm not saying that it's definitely over for Castellanos because there are players, and I'll give you a good example of one that's playing at a high level for the Braves. Like who would have thought, Donnie, 2 years ago, Dominic Smith?
Yes, correct.
Would be a major player for the Braves. Like in a million years, you never would have thought that. This guy was taking minor league deals with other teams just to stick around. If Nick wants to continue to do that, I think he'll find a home and I think he'll get back to the big leagues. But I just don't know that there's a major league contract sitting out there for him right now, Donnie.
Yeah, the Phillies cut the cord, too. It wasn't like, it was like, okay, there's no more money left. Like, he was owed a lot of money, and you're right about this. When he went to the Padres, you figured that would be a good setup. Him, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis, just blend in and do what you can do. The one thing that we equated even in Philadelphia was they're not getting a lot at the plate from Adolis Garcia, who took over in right field for Nick Castellanos. But the thing, the trade-off was, Castellanos was terrible in right field as a fielder. Adolis Garcia is an above-average right fielder, so you can sort of play it off. So, Craig, if you're hitting 191 and you're not very good in the field, it's not going to last long, even if you're only paying the guy basically the veteran minimum to show up in San Diego. But it's just interesting to see that the Padres were like, okay, we're moving on even though we don't have to pay you, and it's in Philadelphia. Maybe they could have waited, but as an organization, look, If somebody's going to be able to help you from the minor league system or bring somebody in a series, they're going to do it regardless of what they're paying you or where you're actually showing up. Remember Chris Paul in the NBA? That ceremony is, hey, I'm going to play my last year in the Clippers. Sent that guy packing on a road trip here saying, hey, persona non grata, get out of town. Now, as we talk about those Padres and Manny Machado, who finally starting to get a couple base hits here. He's been struggling the entire season. Quote, the game's evolving, man. It's definitely getting harder to play. It's definitely getting more strategic. I just wish we can get the analytics out of the way. There's too many stats out there. Now, he does have a point, and he's more of an old school player, and he's a tremendous talent and a great baseball player. But it is interesting where sometimes you have that clash of what do your numbers say and what does your eye test say?
Yeah, and Manny's a potential Hall of Famer. I think he continues to play. I mean, he was still a very good defender, was a fantastic defender, and, played for a lot of different teams. I think that you look, he played for Baltimore and L.A. and then moved on to San Diego. And so, look, he's never been afraid to speak his mind. This is always kind of who he's been. And the one thing that, unfortunately, that I would say for him is what he wants is not going away. It's only going in the other direction. So he doesn't have to embrace it because his career is probably 4 or 5 years away from being over, so it won't really matter for him at this stage. A lot of his career has already been completed in the last 15 years. But, I mean, I saw that interview, Donnie, where he was talking and throwing out some of the different stats that we're all familiar with, and I guess he is not for whatever reason. But trust me when I tell you the majority of players these days are very familiar with these stats. They are very into it. They are setting goals for themselves in different categories here. Manny doesn't have to. He's already established himself as a big league player, $200 million player as well. So good for him. Speaks his mind. So be it.
Yeah, they get paid for those stats too, by the way, because this is the generation that's like, what's your batting average? Don't care about it. Give me the analytical numbers. How many runs am I going to drive in? How many fly balls do I hit? The guy should be embracing analytics, Craig, because old school, his batting average, he's a 170. Manny Machado, a 172 average in the middle of that lineup. Never thought I'd see that, but also understand this from Manny Machado. Craig, I think most, guys have played baseball at some sort of level. Once you graduate from like the little league, 11, 12-year-olds go to 13 to get the bigger diamond out there. If you watch Manny Machado play, if you've ever played third base or shortstop, fielding a ball deep in the hole, throwing to first base, it feels like you're throwing that ball a mile and can barely get there. Manny's got one of the best arms I've ever seen. And some of the plays he makes, they don't even make sense. Like he breaks the laws of physics. Ultra talented. Hopefully gets it back underway at 172. But Craig, I do want to ask you one question about those Padres. Underwhelming in a lot of categories here, but still sitting in second place at 33-30. A terrible last couple week stretch there where you see the Dodgers 8 games lead over the Padres. 2 weeks ago, Craig, they were neck and neck with the Padres a half game up. What are we thinking about the Padres the rest of the way and maybe some changes that they could possibly have?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Donnie. I'm not a huge fan of what's going on there. And then the other thing that's a little bit concerning, I don't think it's concerning long-term, but it's concerning now. Whenever, Donnie, you have an ownership change as rapidly as they have one, you really don't know what kind of direction they're going to go in because usually when new owners buy a club, they make a lot of changes. Does that mean changes for the general manager? Does it mean changes for the manager? Usually rash decisions are not made in season. The Padres may have to sit on their hands at this deadline. I'm not sure that, that AJ Preller is going to have the wherewithal to be able to just go get, attach money to whatever contracts he's getting in return. And they've traded basically all their top prospects to get all the guys that they have. So, I'm just not seeing a great, look, Padres will be 500 or better probably, but I'm just not seeing them as a threat this year.
Craig, you ever see the hashtag dirty water? That's the Boston Red Sox here. I don't know what's in the water in Boston, Craig, but nothing has worked out at any level. Front office, ownership, general manager, president of operations, manager in the dugout, starting pitchers, batters, nothing. The Red Sox have sent Brian Bayo to AAA after he allowed 6 runs in the first inning from this past week. What's going on in the dirty water up there in Boston?
Yeah, nothing good. This is, clearly a huge surprise here. I mean, Bayo is young enough for them to be able to pull the trigger on this kind of move, but it is surprising here. And it does, send a message in that clubhouse to everybody else. If you don't perform, you're going to be out of here. But I don't really know what good it does. The Red Sox are just not a good team. Bayo is going to have to be a big part of their future or someone else's. He's a really good pitcher. He's just having a bad year.
Unbelievable in Boston here. We'll continue to roll along with Pro Baseball Today right here on the SportsGrid Network. Who's hot player edition right now, Craig? We're also going to intertwine some of these hot players with some hot teams and also let you know who might be heating up at this point, just getting into the summer months. One of those teams we look at, it's the Milwaukee Brewers at 39-23. You said, you know what? Entering in the season, what are we going to get here? Oh, that's right, Craig. They didn't spend a lot of free agency money. The Cubs have a ton of money. They look like that shiny new team that you should be backing there in the Central, and we'll see what the Brewers get. But you know what the Brewers get right now? First place right now by 5-game lead over the Cardinals as we enter into Sunday. And Jackson Chourio entering into the season injured. Oh, no. Is this going to be a wipe season? No. 282, 4 bombs, 16 RBI, an OPS of .806. Jackson Chourio getting it started here, coming back healthy and ready to roll for those first-place Brewers.
Yeah, those numbers don't look great, but that's only because he's missed some time. You know, I mean, that's really been the story of his season. He's been hurt and he's been out. But, you know, Donnie, the Brewers' success, definitely credit to them, without a doubt. And, you know, getting the starting pitching that they've gotten, by the way, from Mizorowski, and then the trade that they made, which really looks like it put them over the top, getting Harrison. That was a horrendous trade for Boston, by the way. Wow, what were they thinking? That's gonna look awful on Craig Breslow's resume. So credit to them, but I will say this. Listen, the Cubs sort of put themselves in this position a little bit.
Yeah,
I think a month ago we were looking at the Cubs like they may not beat out the Brewers for the division, but I did not expect them to fall back as far as they did. And I know they had a good weekend, so maybe they jump back into it. But to me, that's the bigger surprise. Not that the Brewers doing so well, but the Cubs have had this crazy streaky season where they win 10 in a row and they lose 10 in a row. They're losing. They come back and Peker Armstrong brings them back to win. They've had that season where you have to have like heart medication to get through it.
By the way, we talk about like those analytics and man of a challenge. Like, we don't like those here. Well, the thing I like about the new wave of technology in Major League Baseball is you go to a Philadelphia Phillies game and the Phillies batting averages, Craig, are terrible. So they don't even show those anymore. Like, they show the analytical stats up there, and it feels like you can confuse the fans, because I like to go old school and go like, boy, would I love this lineup here for the, Brewers. Starting off 282, 282, 282, and 283 for their first 4 batters. Oh, yeah, the 5th batter, it's a 281 here, Craig. We'll get to more on the Brewers, but Jackson Chourio starting to heat up here. Love that lineup here. It's just what the Brewers do. Now, last year, Craig, you talk about those Atlanta Braves. They just couldn't get healthy, and they just couldn't get right. Ronald Acuna Jr., the ultimate starter in that lineup here, 259 average, 7 home runs, 22 RBI, and 814 OPS here. The first place Atlanta Braves with the best record in baseball. This guy ignites that switch here, Craig.
Yeah, and maybe the most compelling stat recently are his stolen bases, which are now on the rise. He's starting to run a lot more. So that tells you that Acuna is indeed 100% healthy. The Braves are really tough. They're going to be very hard to beat. Do we have a collision course with them in Los Angeles? I hate to do this because it feels like we do this every year with teams and it never ends up being that way, but it sure feels like these are potentially the 2 best teams in the league, unless Milwaukee or some other team goes out and makes a major move. But yeah, obviously I love what the Braves are doing. Their lineup 1 through 8 is just massive, and they're hanging on, Donnie, without Drake Baldwin being in the lineup too, and he was one of their best hitters. So yeah, Acuna's been great. And again, the steal's starting to come. He's not going to get to 40-40 or 50-50 or anything like that, but certainly a 20-20 or 30-30 season could happen.
Yeah, and also from a leadoff guy to love to see it, his walk percentage are at 15%, so just getting on base, and his weighted runs created plus is at a 130, setting the table, I should say, for the rest of that lineup. No surprise, every day I look, like my Phillies can go on a win streak here and be like, okay, well, the Braves did exactly the same thing, not cutting into it. 44-21, 9.5 game lead over the Philadelphia Phillies, who are currently sitting there in second place. As we talk about those Philadelphia Phillies, Christopher Sanchez, what a run he was on as a left-handed pitcher, now has the inning streak. Wasn't able to catch up to Orel Hershiser, but 50-plus innings going scoreless here after the Phillies ripped up that old contract, gave him a new one. He certainly, Craig, is rewarding them. And look at his last 3 starts. 22 innings pitched, a minuscule .41 ERA, 23 Ks, only 3 walks. He's been a fantastic pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies, Craig.
Very disappointing to see him give up a run, Donnie. Come on, what are you doing? You can't give up a run in this day and age if you're Christopher Sanchez. That's what we're gauging him on. I mean, this National League Cy Young race is crazy as I've ever seen it. I know we're going to talk about it later between him and Mizorowski, who pitched well again, and then Shohei Ohtani, who just doesn't give up any runs when he pitches as well. Wow, this is as good as and Skeens too. This is as good as we've seen in the NL. That being said, Christopher Sanchez is the best pitcher going in baseball right now. There's no denying that. I don't care that Mizorowski throws 107 miles an hour. to me, if it's one game right now, I want Sanchez out there. And the month of May that he had was historical. It was one of the best that we've ever seen. I don't know if this can continue because I've never seen anything like this before. But to me, the bigger story, even above Sanchez, Donnie, is that there's just so much talent pitching-wise in the NL right now. It's out of control.
There certainly is. But you know what, Craig? I get angry at times, too, because yesterday we're supposed to have a young pitcher in Philadelphia on the mound that's supposed to dominate. He doesn't dominate, Craig. That's Andrew Painter at this point right now. I need you to make some phone calls around the league to see if we can make a trade to get somebody maybe on the West Coast as a right-handed bat to come in town and rebuild the pitching staff for a certain team on the West Coast that would love to have some good young pitching. You guys know exactly where I'm going. I don't even have to name names. It's Craig and Donnie on a Sunday morning talking Major League Baseball right here on Pro Baseball Today.
Well, the talk has been about sports betting handle being down or flat, right, because of the threat of prediction markets and the growth of them. But we've seen Kalshi actually kind of plateau for the first time in recent memory. Looking at a graphic right now, we've had the spike for the Super Bowl, and then this is usually when things die down. Yes, there's March Madness, but usually sports betting handle kind of goes down over the course of the spring and summer until we get back to football season.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time and he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
This is all about headlines, Donnie. If we hear, if that noise gets louder as we get closer, then 45 cents is going to be 65 cents, and that's the repricing we're talking about. I don't need Utah to get him. I need people to think Utah is going to go up and get him, Donnie, and that's how you make money.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
Craig Carton along with Tyrone Johnson. We got great news for you. CraigCartonShow.com. And Tyrone, what do you get if you go to that amazing website?
Well, right now you can subscribe to our upcoming newsletter. You put in your email address, and then bang, you'll get all the new Craig Carton Show content when it arrives.
Not just that, you also get merch drops, exclusive content, and appearances. So again, one more time, that website is CraigCartonShow.com.
Who's hot here? We're going to talk about some of those Major League Baseball teams that seem, Craig, Mish, to be waking up on their Major League Baseball season, and some of these teams have been there the entire season. So let's get started out here in the NL East. You take a look at the standing and say, hey, Phillies are over 500. The Nationals are over 500. Marlins hanging around, and the Mets, well, we'll see if they can get it together. Well, they got to be all close to the first-place team, right? Absolutely not. Those Atlanta Braves, every time we talk, Craig, on a week-to-week basis, they're hot every week. 44-21 entering into Sunday. Winners of 2 in a row. 7-3 in their last 10. No matter what the Phillies do or anybody behind them, they can't gain ground. Why? Because the Braves are always winning regardless of who's on the mound or in the lineup, Craig. It's impressive to watch.
Yeah, they played the Blue Jays earlier this week, and I saw some people, now is finally the time that they're going to face off with a team that's going to beat them. That didn't happen. They went 2 out of 3, got off to a great start in their series against the Pirates. I mean, Donnie, this team is going to win 100 games this year. Like, this is as good as any team in baseball right now, and relatively healthy, as I mentioned, outside of Baldwin, who's getting ready to come back. Their starting pitching has been good, and what the Braves have done very well through the years is that when they see an opportunity on maybe an expiring contract at the end of the season, they jump on that player in July and maybe even in early August at the deadline. So I expect the Braves to get even better. And look, running away with the division, that's a little strong right now. But I just, as you said, Donnie, I just don't see as good as, I think Philadelphia's going to be fine. I think they're probably going to make the playoffs, but I just don't see any team catching them for the division. I don't see it.
Like, you look at the lineup, it's like, yes, they're producing, okay, but what is their pitching staff going to do for us? Well, Chris Sale, 2.23 ERA. Martin Perez, of all guys, 3.02. Spencer Strider is supposed to be the young ace of that staff, working his way back from injury. He's at a 4 ERA, but then Bryce Elder, 2.63. Grant Holmes, 3.86, keeping you in it. And then, Craig, you get to the bullpen. Well, how good is that? I don't know. Raisel Iglesias, 0.87 ERA with 13 saves. Robert Suarez, 0.63 ERA, 4 saves. Dylan Lee, 1.17 ERA. So whether you're blowing a team out or a close game or trying to stay in it, they hit you at every angle of their pitching staff right now.
Yeah, you mentioned the bullpen, and that was a big focus for Atlanta in the offseason, too, getting Suarez. I mean, you think of what the Padres are trying to do. It seems like the Braves have already done it. And Dylan Lee, who you mentioned, that guy just strictly comes in and gets lefties out. No lefties can hit this guy, so he's going to be a huge weapon for them in the postseason as well. And maybe they do add another big bullpen piece. I'm not even sure that they need it, but there'll be a lot of players available here for them to jump on in the next month. But they're a team that's built to win right now.
Yeah, Drake Baldwin, absolutely fantastic young player. Hopefully get him back sooner than later. And so it's like, okay, you put in Sandy Leon. That guy's hitting 0.59, and it doesn't matter here. You're waiting on one of the best, waiting on one of the best players to get back in your lineup and still holding it down and gaining here. Run differential, Craig, for the Atlanta Braves this year, plus 115, absolutely doing their job. You know, another team that's doing their job and does it year after year, who cares who the manager is, or sometimes even the lineup you put out there, that's the Milwaukee Brewers. 39-23 on the season so far. You take a look at their last 10 games, 7-3. The Brewers. Just yeoman's work every single day. A 5-game lead heading into Sunday over the second-place St. Louis Cardinals. It's just what the organization does. It almost has, Craig, to me, like that Tampa Bay Rays feel. That organization just knows how to win, and they're going to get it right.
Yeah, Cleveland also. I put them in that category as well. Yep. These smaller spending, low market teams that every year we go into the season, nobody wants to pick them to win anything, and in the end, all they're doing is winning, and it's happening again for the Brewers. And not a great series for them against San Francisco, but then they get lucky this week and they see Colorado on the schedule. They're like, okay, we'll just take care of them real quick, and then we'll get out of town. But yeah, look, the Brewers are a juggernaut of a team, and really, it's fair to say at this point a pitching factory, because the Giants traded Kyle Harrison to Boston. Boston traded Kyle Harrison to Milwaukee, and then you start to think to yourself, Donnie, when a player gets traded twice, I don't really want to be a part of that, because there's a reason why two organizations let you go. They both screwed up. He gets to Milwaukee. All of a sudden, take a look at the Cy Young voting. He's like in the top 10. And the players at Boston got back in return. I mean, this is like a complete zero. I mean, I would say on paper, this is maybe the most disastrous trade of the offseason thus far. Wow, what a complete whiff. What could he have done for Boston? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe he'd be in the minors like Bayo. But yeah, credit to them. Credit to the starting rotation and bullpen. And it's a team. Look, I hope that they're able to add some players to really put the foot down. Unfortunately, Donnie, these teams generally do not. They generally are like, all right, we got what we got. Let's see what we can do.
Let's not risk the future here, Craig. And by the way, looking at batting average, the first 5 guys, again, as we teased in that previous segment, 282, 282, 282, 283, and 281. That's how you set the table for the lineup here. Getting guys on base was exactly what they're doing. And Craig, as you talk about that pitching staff, good young pitchers, Mizorowski, a 150 ERA. You talked about Kyle Harrison, 157 ERA. That is handling your business from start to finish. Love to see it. And that's why they sit right now with a 5-game lead in the Central Division. Welcome to the show for 2026, Craig. That's those Mariners. We've been waiting. Hey, what's going on in April? What's going on in May? Well, you know who's alive right now? It's those Mariners. And we've been waiting, Craig. When are they going to take the mantle out there in the West and be the best team that we think, the most talented team, I should say, and they should be in first place? Well, how about this? They are by 2.5 games entering into Sunday over the Texas Rangers. We've been waiting, Craig. The Mariners, have they finally arrived in 2026?
I think so, but I'm not positive, but I do think so. I do think they and Texas, who we'll talk about in a minute, I think both of those teams should be better than their record is right now, so I would expect their second halves to be better than the first halves. You mentioned the starting pitching for Seattle. That's where they're certainly superior, and we saw that against the Tigers yesterday, and we saw it earlier in the week against the Mets. But look, Seattle at some point is going to have to decide who they want to be. This is the best opportunity that they're ever going to have in the American League, especially, Donnie, if Aaron Judge is out. Like, this is their shot. Like, either go for it or not. The Blue Jays are not playing like we thought they were. They did not repeat from last year, just coming out of the gate real hot this year. it's wide open right now in the AL. Are the Mariners going to just try to kick the door down here? Are they going to roll with what they got? I don't know the answer to that, but I think they will be better.
Starts there with that starting pitching staff that we know is just so talented. Strikeout guys, yes. He had a 3.79 ERA for Logan Gilbert. Like to see that better. Even George Kirby, 4.04. Like to see that better. But Brian Wu, 3.74. Emerson Hancock, 2.80. Bryce Miller, 133 here in that lineup. And then Luis Castillo, obviously struggling a bit on the season at 5.53. Waiting for the big dumper to get back into that lineup here. But some guys holding down the 40 here, Craig. 13 bombs for Julio Rodriguez and also Luke Raley here. But I think so many times we look at that Mariners lineup and say, boy, every day their pitcher should be better than yours. When are they going to wake up struggling under 500? Now above 500. And as you pointed out, Craig, same division, but still under 500. But only 2.5 games out of first place. Look who it is. It's those Texas Rangers. Entering into the season, Craig, I really like this team. Give me a healthy pitching staff, like the lineup if they can stay healthy. But we've seen at times this lineup continuously be injured here. They're too talented, Craig, to be under 500. But maybe they are turning the corner here on the season.
Yeah, I think talent-wise, they should. I'm not positive that's going to happen because they do have a lot of injury-prone type players. Their defense maybe hasn't been as good as they would have thought going into the year two, so they've given up some unenforced runs. But the thing that sticks out to me is that they're just playing so many close games. I don't know how sustainable that is. We saw the win over the Cardinals early this week, 2-1. On Friday, they beat Cleveland 3-2. They edged the Cardinals 7-4. I mean, these are all close games that they're in. And I would have thought that Texas had the thump, you know? Like, I would have thought that we'd see a lot of crooked numbers for them this season, and we haven't done that. But I'm like a pseudo-believer in Texas. I think they'll be in it. I just don't know if they're as good as Seattle, which is kind of what we thought at the beginning of the season. But I'll tell you this, Donnie, if Seattle decides to do nothing and just stand pat with what they have, and Texas decides to put the foot down a little bit, they could pass them.
And by the way, you're waiting for your superstar players to sort of carry on the season. Sometimes you're only as good as those real high-playing guys. Like, look, they've been there, done that, World Series champions. You look at Corey Seager. Now, yes, he's been injured quite a bit over the past 2 years. He only has 190 plate appearances, but a 183 batting average, something you never thought you would see out of Corey Seager. The same way, Craig, we talked about Manny Machado, but maybe an anomaly in Major League Baseball in this day and age. Josh Young. Look at how many bats he's had, 248, 310 batting average. This guy's the greatest hitter we've ever seen in our life, because it used to be, Craig, you have a couple of guys in your lineup that hit 300 here. Now it's like a unicorn if you see a guy hit 300. But Josh Young, 310 on the season, man. That's impressive to see.
Yeah, the point that I think that you make overall is that doing these shows 5-10 years ago, if you saw somebody hitting 230, you would say that that's horrible. And now that's about average, you know, like, so there's no reason to bash anybody hitting 230 anymore if the league is hitting 240. So that's kind of where we've gotten to. Young will not hit 300 this season, but definitely a fun start for him.
And but it's not, I'm telling you, it's not the batter's fault here, analytics. These pitchers, man, they throw gas from start to finish, just the way it is. Pro Baseball Today back after this quick break. From who's hot to who's not in Major League Baseball, it's a long season. It's a roller coaster. You get out hot in the month, late month of March here, hang it into April, but sooner than later, the cream is going to rise to the top. Just a few short weeks ago, we were looking at the NL West and saying, boy, Dodgers in a little malaise right now, Craig. Are they just going to wake up come playoff time and maybe a little bit banged up and injured and it won't really matter? But now you see the gas pedal hit, but also that team that the Dodgers were fighting with, and quite frankly in second place too, was the San Diego Padres. Fast forward just 2 short weeks. The Padres goes from leaders in the clubhouse to 8 games back in the NL West. Yeah, they still sit above 500, 33-30, but my goodness, the past couple weeks haven't been good, which includes 2-8 over their last 10. There's too much talent on that team to be under 500, which they're not, but obviously playing under 500 ball the past couple weeks, Craig.
Yeah, and I think it's the conversation, in case you missed it earlier in the show, that I would focus on. I mean, the team that we'll talk about next, Arizona, I do think is better than San Diego, but I think it's just kind of more of, okay, at this point in the season, it's not a big deal. They're going to be a 500 team, maybe a little bit better, a little bit worse. But what is the difference, Donnie? The difference is that the Padres have been as aggressive at deadlines and off seasons as any team has maybe ever in the last 10, 15 years. I just don't know that that's still going to be the case because of the new ownership. And that's not a better or worse scenario, Donnie, but it feels like right now what's going to happen to me, I'm going to guess, with the Padres is there's going to be a lot of evaluation going on right now, Donnie, right? Like there's going to be people that own the club that are going to say, like, all right, show me the landscape. Who do we have? Not just players, executives. Let's go through it one by one. And usually those key decisions are not made. And so now all of a sudden, Donnie, it's like if you are the owner of the Padres, you don't know AJ Preller, right? You don't know him. You just met him maybe a few months ago. And AJ Preller goes to you and says, let's use Skubal as an example, even though it won't be him. We have Tariq Skubal. Here's $12 million. Here, you got to pay for this. Like, do you just blindly accept? I think Seidler and that family probably did, because that's what they did with AJ Preller. Yeah. So just the fact that I can throw that out you for that question tells you that I'm just not sure. I can't answer the question as to what the Padres are going to be in the next few months. I don't know.
Yeah, finally picked up a dub yesterday there going up against those New York Mets, but also some of the anomalies there that we talk about. Manny Machado hitting 172, but more importantly, Fernando Tatis, his average is decent, around a 275, finally hit his first home run in the season, like at 265 plate appearances for Tatis, 1 home run, which is pretty incredible. But Craig, as we know, sometimes you look to make those moves in the offseason. Now, it might not be getting great players, but you expect those players to contribute. You take a look at their pitching staff. Griffin Canning is a free agent, 6.34 ERA. Then you take a look at free agency here with Walker Buehler. Again, aging guy, but 4.53. Lucas Giolito, just to try to help you out, 4.86. Not a lot of things that the Padres have tried have worked there, but they still are above 500, still in the wild card mix, waiting for some of those superstar players to step up. Now, the Diamondbacks always interesting to me. Talented roster, yes, we'll see what we get, but always a tough division to compete with when you're with the likes of a high payroll, let's just say of the Giants or the Padres and or the Los Angeles Dodgers. But the Diamondbacks, again, still above 500, Craig, but seeming like the Padres struggling as of late, 3-7 in their last 10 games here coming into it, 8.5 games back over those Dodgers.
So Washington had a hard time scoring runs against Miami and couldn't pitch at all against Miami. And then they face off with Arizona, and then they go back to being the number 1 offense in baseball and pitch out of their minds. And they gave up 2 runs total Friday, Saturday. This is why baseball is impossible to predict on a daily basis. I'm not really worried. I think Arizona is going to have their ups and downs. They're not a great team. They're not a bad team. They're about a 500 team, maybe a little bit better. Donnie, we're going to get to September. They're going to be 4 games out, 3 games out of the wild card, and then whoever gets hot gets in. They're a very well-run organization. I have confidence that they're going to stay in this thing. And so for me, at the end, I could see them actually flipping on the Padres. I could see that happening. It's just, I think, a little bit of a slump this week, nothing more.
Yeah, Zach Gallen, always a mainstay in that lineup, but being a starting pitcher, but a 5.32 ERA this season certainly isn't working out well. One of those veterans that might need a change of scenery and maybe somebody bites, but of always looking at, hey, who's going to get Ketel Marte? Who's going to get Corbin Carroll? Those questions always pop up. And by the way, Corbin Carroll, 284 batting average on the season, Craig, with 9 home runs. The home run leader there, it's actually Ketel Marte out of that leadoff spot with 11 home runs. Talented team still over 500, but whenever you're in a Dodgers division, seems like you're always looking up there. Take a look at those Tampa Bay Rays. Now, we talked about them saying, you know what? looks like they're not playing good baseball. Then they're playing good baseball. Now back to not playing so good baseball here. They're still in first place coming into Sunday, a game lead over the New York Yankees, but their last 10 games, Craig, 3-7 overall, just running through one of those ruts that sometimes you get into in a Major League Baseball season.
Yeah, hate to point out a graphic mistake, but got to do it. The Rays did not beat the Marlins yesterday because I know because I was there.
On, Craig. How do you know, Craig?
I was at the game. Sorry to say. So the Rays just didn't pitch against Detroit. I don't really know, Donnie, how else to say that they just got clobbered by them. It was really odd. Then they came back and Rasmussen pitched great Friday. McClanahan probably his worst start of the season against Miami Saturday, which was really strange. I have no concerns with Tampa Bay whatsoever. Just a slumping time for them, probably a little bit. They'll probably be a little bit aggressive and say they'll go for it a little. They still have the best record in the American League, Donnie. So I am not worried about them. They pitch well, they hit well. And then the other part of it, and really this is Donnie, this is their strength, and this is why it's an issue. If their starting pitching is going to give up a lot of runs, maybe like most teams, they're going to lose. Maybe it's just as simple as that. But when they have leads, that's when their strength comes in because they have all these different bullpen arms. One guy's throwing from the top, one guy's throwing from the middle, one guy's throwing from the bottom. You can't get used to seeing these guys. One throws a fastball and it looks just like a changeup. They're really great at that with their bullpen. And so that's why they're more built, I think, for the postseason than some others. So just a June slump, I would say, for them.
And we talk about some other teams out there and say, okay, everybody pick on that free agent heap, not helping you out like the Padres here as a starting pitcher. Then you take a look at getting Nick Martinez, 70 2/3 innings pitched. Craig, how about a 2.29 ERA? And also Shane McClanahan working his way back into form at a 2.85 ERA. Now, also, we're supposed to say, the runs came a little bit easier because you're playing outdoors in basically a minor league stadium there for the New York Yankees last year. You go back into the Trop. 326 for Yandy Diaz on the season. Also understand this, the three guys in the middle of that lineup, 14 bombs for Caminero, 11 for Random, and 11 for Diaz. They're getting some of those hitters in the middle of that lineup performing, even though they're back in the Trop, Craig.
Yeah, and Caminero, he's as good as anybody, offensively, Donnie. What a find they got with him internationally. I'm not sure if he plays third base long term. He's played very well, by the way. I've seen him play now twice in person recently in St. Petersburg and in Miami. I think he profiles maybe for me more as a first baseman or maybe even a DH, but he is one of, not Donnie, one of the top 10, but like one of the top 3 hitters, I think, power-wise in the game. He is right up there.
Those Tampa Bay Rays. One more team we're talking about not playing great baseball. Then we'll flip it over and talk a little college baseball. Absolutely on Pro Baseball Today.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Terrible start last year, injured all the way through, didn't have a chance to win that Major League Baseball season. This year, first team to 20 wins, first team to 30 wins, first team to 40 wins. It's all been the Atlanta Braves. Good baseball club lurking around here.
They still have some guys, some starting pitchers on the shelf there that could help them down the road, but the Braves are sitting pretty right now.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
That's for Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time? And he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Well, the talk has been about sports betting handle being down or flat, right, because of the threat of prediction markets and the growth of them. But we've seen Kalshi actually kind of plateau for the first time in recent memory. Looking at a graphic right now, we've had the spike for the Super Bowl, and then this is usually when things die down. Yes, there's March Madness, but usually sports betting handle kind of goes down over the course of the spring and summer until we get back to football season.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Let's head west here in Major League Baseball and talk about the AL West. The Mariners, the Rangers, the Athletics, the Astros, and the Angels here. And our focus is going to be on those Athletics. Craig, we've done a lot of shows so far this year. Hanging around first place for most of the season, it actually was the Athletics. Now, we always said to ourselves, the Mariners probably the better team, and we're waiting for the Rangers to wake up as well. The cream's going to rise to the top. But the good thing about teams in the West is you don't have to be playing great baseball, and you can still be in first place. Hence, the Mariners at 34-31. But the Athletics sit at 30-34. Lost 3 straight games heading into Sunday, 3-7, in their last 10. Waiting on those Athletics. It's probably about what we thought they would be, and still only 3.5 games back, but it feels like, I don't know if they're going to catch back up to the leaders here, per se.
Or catch back up to 500. I think they've probably played their best baseball so far. Thursday, they had a win in their grasp against the Cubs. It could have been a sweep. And then Pete Crow Armstrong and some others led them back, and they lost 7-6, and they're getting clobbered by Houston this weekend. So, look, the A's, what could we say that's good about them? It looks like they're making progress. I think that that's fair. They have a couple of really strong hitters, maybe going to the All-Star game, in Nick Kurtz and Shea Langoliers. Their pitching, to me, Donnie, is probably not that good, and they're probably not going to invest in that while they're playing in that ballpark. It doesn't really make a lot of sense in Sacramento. So, at some point, and I don't know if it's next year, Donnie, but you're going to see this from them when they get closer to moving into Las Vegas in that new stadium. They're going to have to build a lot more goodwill than what they've done and start to fight, because you can't open up a brand new stadium in Las Vegas with a team that's going to be, winning 72 games and losing 90. So this is probably not the year to, for them to move forward a little bit. But if they ended up winning, somewhere between 70 and 75 games a season, which they're certainly on track for, then I think that that's somewhat of progress for them. Right now, I think their pace is for about 75, which isn't bad.
I'll tell you what is interesting about the A's, too, with that whole move down to Vegas. You saw it again with a franchise that hasn't been very successful for, let's just say, the past 25 years. The Oakland Raiders, when they moved to Vegas, you almost get that imprint right away, Craig. It's like, okay, we might be bad, but that is a destination city for every other fan base to come in. And no matter what, we're going to be popular because that stadium is going to be filled. Like the Athletics, throughout their tenure in Oakland, even way back, they weren't always fantastic in attendance, but we didn't have the hatred from the fan base towards ownership, and then eventually saying, let's have 1,000 people in the ballpark, and they eventually move. I'm interested to see if you do have that same thing, Craig, like, hey, you know what? Let's plan a vacation. Phillies fans, yeah, we're going to go to Vegas. If Athletics are bad, they'll still be able to fill up that ballpark, and I just want to see what that ballpark actually does look like when it's completed. A lot of energy down there on that old site. I think it was the Tropicana that they knocked down. I want to say it's getting up there. You got the beams in place, and a lot of stuff is going underway, so fun to take a look at here. But, Craig, College World Series, Super Regionals going down. Sometimes I can't even keep up here who's doing what. I know you're a Gators fan. Me, I sort of check in on Miami. Look, Miami used to be really good in college baseball. Not so much anymore. But you've been following along, Craig, here. I know your son's big into baseball, and maybe you're going to start to take some of those trips out there to Florida, to Miami, to Alabama. Have you been keeping an eye on the College World Series at all?
I mean, it's hard with all the baseball that I have. How much baseball, Donnie, is too much baseball? I mean, you think about it. So when the Marlins are here, I'm there because I'm on that broadcast. And this summer, when they're not here, I'm somewhere else with my son while he's playing somewhere else. So last weekend, we were in Fort Myers. And we get there, for a tournament, Fort Myers, Florida, and we go to a minor league game. So I guess the answer to your question is, Donnie, how do I even have time for this? So the only thing that I can unequivocally say is what's great about this year's Omaha, this year's College World Series, is that it's a lot of Cinderella stories coming out of it this year. That's the one thing. A lot of the major teams got knocked off even before they got to that point. So maybe potentially could it be Troy, West Virginia, Ole Miss, one of those teams that was a little bit of a surprise. Look, the end is always going to be great. There's always going to be great moments. And when it gets to the end, I'll probably watch. And I hate to disappoint people by saying, oh, I don't watch college baseball. It's not a matter of that. It's like my hands are just completely full. Like there is not a weekend where I'm not involved in some baseball. For folks who are watching this show on Sunday, whenever it is, in all likelihood, I'm either in the car when you're watching right now, after on a replay somewhere, headed down to watch the Marlins play the Rays, or I'm headed back, or I'm at the stadium, and I'm getting ready for next week when the Marlins play Arizona. And then after they're done, I'm headed to West Palm Beach, Florida, because my son has 2 games next Thursday, 1 game next Friday, 1 game next Saturday, and then some sort of bracket game next Sunday. So, Donnie, I'm living it.
Yep.
I'm in it every single day. Sorry, College Baseball World Series. I'll catch you at the end.
On the road again. And by the way, a lot of similarities between college baseball and also pro baseball, where UCLA was the best team. They hadn't lost in a million years, and all of a sudden St. Mary's is knocking them out of the tournament. Also, Vanderbilt, the Vandy boys, always a staple in Omaha. They didn't even get into like the regional round at this point here. But also, I remember growing up as a kid watching those games. I want to say it was old Rosenblatt. You had the metal bats, Craig, and they were hammering baseballs left and right back in the day. A little bit different now as the changeover is, but college baseball immensely popular here as we close in on the College World Series. But also, you know what is interesting too, Craig? Women's college softball, maybe just as popular as the men's game. Pretty incredible stuff. More baseball talk on the way as we go right here on Pro Baseball Today.